The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is August the 3rd, 2025. My goodness, Mary, how this year is marching on.
Flying, Polly.
All right, let's get on with our top story here in the Defender. Dr. Vinay Prasad exits top FDA vaccine post after less than 3 months. HHS said that Prasad resigned because he did not want to be a distraction to the great work of the FDA in the Trump administration. However, the Washington Post citing anonymous sources saying Prasad was ousted. Mary, do you know what happened there? Have you any idea?
We don't know all the details, Polly, but it's pretty clear there were people attacking him as not being sufficiently loyal to President Trump. He apparently had been a supporter of Bernie Sanders. I think all of that is pretty ridiculous, but it was pretty strong. There was an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. There was an attack on social media by Laura Loomer. But interestingly, Polly, the backstory that was published in Stat, which is a kind of pharma insider publication online, was that former Senator Rick Santorum was lobbying on behalf of a biotech gene therapy company, Sarepta, had been discontinued by Dr. Prasad because of 3 deaths. And as soon as he was out of the position, that drug resumed on the market. So it looks like it probably was a money issue, but we don't really know the details. The important thing, Polly, is who's really going to take over the Center for Biologic Evaluation and Research. This is where all the vaccines go through. It's where all the gene therapies go through. For the moment, Dr. Tidmarsh, who's the head of the Drug Evaluation Research Program, is now also going to head the biologics program, but it's not clear if he's going to stay in that role, if they're going to bring somebody in. I think it's unfortunate that allegedly, sort of ideology, who you voted for and your view of different politicians has played a role here. I don't think we really know what happened, but certainly we do know that the stocks of gene therapy companies have gone up since Dr. Prasad is out.
Okay, interesting. In the Defender, Brenda Belletti, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. seeks extra time to explore early resolution in vaccine safety lawsuit. He's requesting an additional 2 weeks to respond to a lawsuit alleging he violated federal law by not establishing a task force to make vaccines safer. This lawsuit is funded by Children's Health Defense.
So, Polly, let me just be really clear here. The 1986 statute, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act itself, says that the Secretary of Health and Human Services must convene a task force on vaccine safety. And that task force must report to Congress every 2 years about what they're doing to make vaccines safer, because they've taken away our ability to sue the vaccine manufacturers or the doctors directly for vaccine injury. And that task force existed for a short time between 1990 and 1998, and it never reported to Congress, as far as we know. So this is a lawsuit being brought by attorney Ray Flores, who has worked closely with Children's Health Defense and with Bobby Kennedy for many years. And the lawsuit says you have not fulfilled your obligations on this task force and telling Congress how vaccines are made safer. And I think that the Secretary Kennedy's decision to postpone the response, I hope, Polly, is so that he'll come back and tell us by mid-August, this is going to be the task force and we're going to report to Congress by such and such a date. I'm really hopeful that that's what's going to happen, because we know that Bobby Kennedy does want to make the whole vaccine program safer and better for people.
Many of our viewers saying there's no such thing as a safe vaccine and there never will be. So there's Well,
Polly, I'm with you there, but that's what the statute says. I'm not convinced there will. Well, I don't think they've ever tried to do it. I don't think they've ever tried. I'm not sure there is such a thing. But the bottom line is that this 86 law 40 years ago said they have to try and they have to report to Congress, and they haven't done it.
right these wrongs. Children's Health Defense asked Senator Moreno to seek justice for workers fired under COVID vaccine mandates. In a letter to Senator Bernie Moreno, Children's Health Defense requested help in repairing the damage inflicted on workers who lost their jobs because of the COVID-19 vaccine mandates, and drawing attention to the tens of thousands of religious exemptions to vaccination that were illegally denied. Right.
So Senator Moreno is the senator from Ohio. He's a freshman senator. And in the two hearings that we've seen him in, that Senator Ron Johnson called, in the first one about myocarditis and the COVID shots, he excoriated Governor Josh Green, who's really been the new point person for endorsing and promoting the COVID shots. And then in this last hearing, which was about all of the vaccine injury from the childhood program, he said the North Star has got to be medical freedom. We were like, yes, exactly right. You said it, Senator Moreno. So I'm very excited that we may have a new champion in the Senate for the issues that we care so deeply about, Polly. At the hearing where you spoke so eloquently, he talked about his 18-month-old grandchild and how close this issue is to his heart, that we be protecting children's health. So we're excited. We've reached out to Senator Moreno with a letter, and we're hoping to set up a meeting with him very soon with his constituents in Ohio.
And we'll keep you updated.
Yeah.
Okay, Brenda Belletti again. Very heartless system. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes aim at vaccine injury compensation program. U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he plans to overhaul the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, the federal program created to compensate people injured by vaccines. In an interview, Kennedy said, mainstream media is brain dead when it comes to this issue. They will not criticize, they will not report vaccine injuries. So that's exciting. Let's get going on that, please.
Yeah, I love that statement. Mainstream media is brain dead when it comes to this issue. That's a strong statement, and it's so true, as we know.
Representative Gosar reintroduces bill to strip liability protection from vaccine makers. He introduced legislation in the U.S. House of Representatives that would allow people injured by vaccines to sue the vaccine manufacturer. It would also expand the statute of limitations on vaccine injury and allow people injured by a vaccine to pursue both federal and civil compensation.
Polly, this is the second time Representative Gosar of Arizona has introduced this bill. We, Children's Health Defense, have supported it both times. What's really exciting about his dropping this bill this past week is that in 2 days, he already had 28 co-sponsors. So our issues are definitely gaining ground in the Congress, and that's exciting.
Absolutely. Okay, Brenda Belletti, defender. Are vaccines big money makers for pediatricians? Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s comment during interview with Tucker Carlson sparks this new debate. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the New York Times say there are no perverse incentives for doctors to push vaccines, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recently claimed. But data from insurance incentives, structures, and analysis of a pediatric practice income show that high vaccination rates are key to a profitable practice. Not to mention the many pediatricians that have come to us and told us exactly what they do earn if they vaccinate.
Right. So this is a really good article. It's a great interview of Bobby Kennedy with Tucker Carlson. I encourage people to watch it. I love in this article, James Lyons Weiler, our friend, director of the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge, says this is a clear undisclosed conflict of interest. And it also has a link to a video with Dr. Paul Thomas, who regularly is on our shows. And he explains that if your pediatric practice has 15,000 patients, and you reach a 90% vaccination threshold, you would earn $600,000 for that threshold if you get, a certain amount per person. So it's real money. This is like they're saying that, oh, no, there's no conflict. No, there's an absolute conflict. And this is essentially a kickback, and it is harming kids. So we, as you have said, Polly, really want to drive this point home.
Well, it's that time of year when it's back to school, Mary. So everybody's losing their minds in the mainstream media. Here's ABC News. Experts say now is the time to get back to school vaccinations for your children. Health experts say it's important to not wait. They recommend diphtheria, tetanus, chickenpox, polio, whooping cough, measles, mumps, and rubella. Health experts want all parents to know that scientists stand behind the safety and efficacy of traditional and seasonal vaccines. I still don't understand, Mary, how they can say this, how they're allowed to print this in the press when it's so categorically a lie. The Defender here has a report from the Atlantic. This is the conversations doctors are having about vaccinations now. For years, studies have pointed to one especially powerful influence over whether a person will get a vaccine, and that's a clear recommendation from your doctor. This particular pediatrician in the article reports she has spoken with several families who, at her recommendation, had previously immunized all of their older children, yet now they're adamant about not vaccinating their newborns or following children. So that's a pediatrician saying what is going on, basically. They used to listen to me. They're not listening to me anymore.
Right.
Good news, people. Suzanne Burdick in The Defender. Danish researchers remain mum on corrected data showing link between aluminum in vaccines and autism. The Danish researchers, who said their study of 1.2 million children found no link between aluminum in vaccines and neurodevelopment disorders, including autism. They've yet to acknowledge that the study's corrected data showed a link. Meanwhile, scientists contradicted the lead authors, claiming that aluminium in vaccines is likely non-toxic since it's delivered in a salt rather than a metal form. And just to continue on that vein, so we can talk about it at the end of this, Danish study on aluminum in vaccines, a masterclass in how to design a study that proves no danger by hiding it. In Dr. Setti's opinion, the study serves as an excellent example of why we as medical professionals can no longer simply read abstracts and results, trusting that peer review will validate findings. And then the last one from the Brownstone Institute, again in the Defender, Danish study on aluminum in vaccines should be retracted, scientists say. So there's a lot going on that story, and so it should, Mary. It needs to be headlines.
Completely agree. We talked about this last week, Polly. Listen, this article by this apologist for aluminum in vaccines, Dr. Hvid, who's been, an apologist for decades for vaccines from Denmark, they were caught, Polly, right? The first appendix that they published with the journal was not the right one. They published after all the hoopla in the press, the correct statistics, and our senior scientist, Carl Jablonowski, analyzed and was like, they lied. There is a statistical correlation between higher doses of aluminum, even in their data that was manipulated, showing that the people who got more aluminum had higher rates of autism, ADHD, all kinds of neurodevelopmental problems. It should be retracted, Polly. And, if you remember back in COVID, if you remember, we talked about the Surgisphere study. It was completely laced with fraudulent data, and it was retracted. And so it is possible that this can and should be retracted, which is exciting. And these two articles, the Brownstone article and the article by Madhav Sethi and his Substack that we republished, they're really, really great to explain bit by bit how do scientists in a peer-reviewed journal manipulate the data so much to get to the result they want, even though it's a completely false outcome if you really look at it legitimately. So I think we've caught them red-handed on this one, Polly. This one is a big deal. They're trying to say, oh, it's not a metal when you inject it if it's in a salt form. That's just complete nonsense. So this is exciting. This is really exciting. It's not over yet.
Is fraud too strong a word to use in something like this? Because that's what it feels like to me.
I think we could prove fraud. So yes, this is fraud in my view.
In my view too. American Academy of Pediatrics wants to shut down religious vaccine exemptions. The AAP said religious and philosophical vaccine exemptions are problematic and should be prohibited for children attending daycare and school in the US. Critics say maintaining exemptions is essential in preserving parental choice, medical ethics, and informed consent. What are the American Academy of Pediatrics up to, Mary? They're not my favorite place at all, people. I can't.
Well, they have not been our friend for 20 years, Polly. They want to kick kids out of the practice who don't get vaccinated. They're saying we want to get rid of any non-medical exemptions. And we know the real truth is they want to get rid of medical exemptions and vaccinate everybody, literally, even if it kills them. The really exciting information in this article is about a recent Supreme Court decision relating to parents' objections to curricula in schools that violate the parents' religious beliefs. We know that there's been these curricula on all kinds of issues that many religious parents disagree with. So that decision by the Supreme Court, Mahmoud v. Taylor, says that when the government has this curricula that conflicts with a parent's religious beliefs, the child's access to public education can't be conditioned by violating deeply held religious convictions of the parent. This is changing the landscape, Polly, of religious convictions of parents in school context. And this is going to have a major impact, we believe, on the way that courts have to look at religious exemptions. Because what strict scrutiny means is the court has to look at the government's actions and say, is it the least restrictive means possible to achieve this outcome that we want of, let's say, public health or even high vaccination rates? 45 states already have that balance with religious exemptions. So the AAP is on the wrong side of this argument. And in courts now going forward, they're unlikely to be successful. Also interesting, the authors of this AAP policy statement say they have no conflicts of interest. Our phenomenal reporters looked them up in a database called Open Secrets to find that they have lots of ties to the pharmaceutical industry. Not a surprise to us, but again, misrepresentation of who they are, what they're representing, what their conflicts are.
Okay, Brownson Institute. Need help getting your child a religious exemption from vaccine mandates. Making a strong case for exempting your children from vaccine mandates involves pitting the assumption of public safety against personal interest. That means crafting an argument that documents your moral obligation as a parent, your religious obligation to God, and in facts about the disease. It's the risk and the benefits and the dangers of the vaccine. This article is laid out beautifully and a must.
I agree with you. It's a fantastic article by Jay Richards, who is working at the Heritage Foundation and really leading their work in the Make America Healthy Again movement. In fact, Polly wrote to him last night to say, really fantastic article.
Really good work. Okay, Michael Nevadakis in The Defender. Advocates for religious exemptions notch victories in West Virginia and Massachusetts. In West Virginia, a judge dismissed one lawsuit challenging religious exemptions, while another judge ruled mandatory school vaccines violated the state's Equal Protection for Religious Act of 2023. In Massachusetts, a grassroots effort prevented a House vote on a bill to remove religious exemptions for school children. The power of the people. Keep going, people.
Yeah, these are two good developments in West Virginia and Massachusetts. And I think we're seeing religious exemptions, Polly, gain traction. And in those two states, that's definitely going against the grain. So this is good news.
You said this ages ago. You said this is what they're coming for. And you were absolutely right, Mary. Okay, the UK. The UK reveals new details of upcoming pandemic exercise similar to Event 201 that preceded COVID. The exercise PEGASUS, the UK's largest pandemic response exercise in history, aims to help to safeguard our citizens. But critics worry the plan is just a way to exert control through greater surveillance.
Polly, this is supposed to take place between September and November of this year. And they say they want to do this annually. And they want to train 4,000 people a year on this pandemic preparedness and helping citizens. And this one blew me away. They want to test their cell phone alert service to reach 87 million people at once. I mean, this is a fear-mongering exercise. This is create panic and put in place control and surveillance mechanisms. And so I really hope people will just say, no, we're not participating, not this time, did it last time, not doing it again. We'll see. I definitely want us to continue to cover this.
GM Watch here in the Defender. Tech billionaires spearhead efforts to build gene-edited designer babies. Bootstrap Bio is a company created about 18 months ago, has hired a chief science officer and opened a lab and pivoted its work to genetic editing of human embryos. Bloomberg was reporting here. In June, MIT Technology Review reported that the founder of Coinbase, who is worth an estimated $10 billion, posted on X that he is ready to fund a US startup focused on gene-edited human embryos.
Horrifying, Polly, horrifying. These people are, I can't even get my head around it, to be honest with you. It's horrifying. This is not something we want. And this article is quite fascinating. It explains that the gentleman in China, the scientist who had, in fact, gene edited 3 children, who then served 3 years in Chinese prison, he's out. He's now going to be funded by some of these tech bro billionaires. It's time, as this article points out from Genetically Modified Watch, it's time to step up the opposition. This is a new and alarming phase in this obvious temptation to people who have no understanding of the sanctity of life. Right. This is a new phase, and they're trying to engineer humans. It's horrifying to me.
It's horrifying. Pre-order today, how Merck and drug regulators hid serious harms of the HPV vaccines. This is a new book. Dr. Peter Gosar shares his experience as an expert witness in the lawsuit against Merck. He exposes the tactics the drug company used to avoid reporting on the serious neurological harms of its HPV vaccine, Gardasil. Good to see Gardasil back out there again, Mary.
Yeah, and Peter Gotcha has a long resume. He used to head the Cochrane Collaborative, and so he has really fantastic medical credentials, and he was an expert witness in the lawsuit that we were supporting to challenge Merck over the qualification of Gardasil and being put on the market as safe. So this is a very, very strong critique of what happened with Gardasil. It's good.
Telehealth firms that partner with Big Pharma prescribe more drugs. This is the US Senate report showing this. The US Senate investigation found that most patients who use telehealth firms that partnered with pharmaceutical companies were given a prescription, frequently for drugs offered by the same drug company, Eli Lilly and Pfizer. They denied any suggestion their platforms incentivize telehealth firms. Well, sorry, but I don't believe you.
Yeah, that's totally silly. Of course, they prioritize their own drugs. I mean, this was a study over 9 months. To me, this is sort of like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, Polly. Of course, they are supporting and pushing their own drugs. And of course, that's a bad idea. If you want to have doctors make independent judgments, it should be illegal.
I completely agree. Well, the Cool Down is reporting here. Scientists issue warning after discovering dangerous particles blowing in the wind. The impacts of human health are concerning. Sewage overflows and coastal winds could be sending billions of microplastics into the air, according to a study. Scientists worry about the health impacts of this airborne plastic pollution, quite rightly, Mary.
I was at a recent food conference, Polly, where a woman held up a credit card and she said, look at this piece of plastic. This is how much plastic we're taking into our bodies on a regular basis. And it's scary.
It is for those little children as well. I mean, who knows what the outcome of that's going to be? Yeah, very well. I'm glad we're reporting on that as well. All right, so just to remind everyone about our CHD conference, it's the 7th to the 9th of November here in Austin, Texas, 2025. Now, we do have some speakers confirmed already. So we've got Peter McCullough, we've got Mary Holland, Pierre Corey, Brian Hooker, Andy Wakefield. Now, some of you have not seen, he's not really come out of the woodwork for some time.
No, he hasn't for a long time. It's exciting. It's really exciting. And Andy's a great speaker too, right? He's funny and he's been through so much. It'll be great to have Andy there.
Dr. Suzanne Humphreys as well confirmed to speak at the conference. So I know many of you are going to want to come and meet her. And I know that she's talking about something really interesting that we do not cover enough. So you're going to love that. and our very own Catherine Austin Fitz. Yes, I know so many of you want to meet her as well. She will be there and she will be speaking as well. More to come. There's many more speakers to come, but we're just going to release a few every week and let you know. But do come if you can come. An early Christmas present, whatever it may be, but do come and meet us. We so want to meet you, and there's exciting things going on that weekend.
Yeah. And I think I look at our conference, we didn't do it last year, Polly, because it was too complicated with Bobby Kennedy running for president, but we're so excited to do it this year. And I see our meeting in early November is really getting ready for 2026. 2026 is going to be a very important year for Children's Health Defense, for our movement, for what's going to be happening in Washington, D.C. and in the state capitals. So I really hope that you can come and that we can think together about how we move forward and how we can be most effective. It's going to be super fun. We've got some fantastic speakers lined up, but it's not about, Polly, at the end of the day, the speakers get us there, and that's important. But what it's really about is being together. It's about the energy. It's about communication. It's about the brainstorming. It's about the new ideas that are going to come out of this, and you won't want to miss it.
No, it's going to be very exciting. And so we'll put the link to sign up in the show notes, but if you just go to children'shealthdefense.org, right at the top there, it's called Moment of Truth. So just click on that Moment of Truth and everything will be there for you. And like I say, we'll be announcing more speakers over the weeks, but very exciting.
And Polly, if people can't make it, we want people to come because there's no substitute for being in person, but we are going to have an online option. And so you should think about that. If you say it's absolutely impossible for me to get there, well, then sign up for the online version because that's going to be, the next best thing.
And also lots of Children's Health Defense staff will be there. Michael Kent, and Stephanie Crucio, all the people that you see on CHD-TV, they'll be there, and lots of people behind the scenes as well. So it'll be really lovely to meet Children's Health Defense people.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we are going to go to our geoengineering. And then after that, we started on the 1st of August, our medical professionals. We have so many of the brave medical professionals that came to the bus or came to us at Children's Health Defense, and they're speaking out about what happened to them when they spoke out or what they think and what they found. So we're so grateful to the medical professionals doing that. And this whole month will be covering them and their bravery and their experience. So there's that. But for Mary and I, pray big, stand firm, never settle. And I'll be with you tomorrow on Good Morning CHD. And Mary and I'll be back next week.
Bye, everybody.
I'm Claire Dooley, you're watching CHD TV, and this is the Geoengineering Report, where we identify the threat in the skies. Insects have vanished, pollinators are missing, and forests are falling silent. These aren't just abstract trends, they're the unraveling of nature itself. We ask, what happens when the foundational life forms of our planet disappear? Dane Wigington with geoengineeringwatch.org lays out how climate engineering contributes to the biological collapse now threatening food, forests, and the future.
Half the tree of life. Ecologists horror as nature reserves are emptied of insects. We have a climate-led species collapse.
It corroborates everything we've stated at geoengineeringwatch.org since 2012. We were the first significant source to publish data about insects collapsing around the globe that's from our work with former government scientists. And my question to the population would be this: if the insects can't make it, how long do we really think we're going to be here? I haven't seen a single bee in Northern California where I live this year. I saw one bumblebee a couple days ago, but not a honeybee. I mean, that is absolutely profound. I live in what was a formerly lush forest that's now dying by the day. No pollinators, so the wildlife is tanking and collapsing as well because insects across the board are largely gone. In forests here where I couldn't, because I spent a lot of time in the forest, and where I would sleep on the forest floor and awaken at first light because there were so many birds that it was like being in the tiki room at Disneyland where they have all these bird calls and you couldn't sleep. It's deathly silent now, deathly silent. And again, how people can ignore that, go about their lives, go to football games and political rallies and pretend nothing's wrong is mind-numbing to me. It's like we're caught between a clinically insane power structure and a population that is hopelessly asleep at the wheel. That has to change. And all other causes or concerns, and I stress this, this is where prioritizing matters as well. Whatever cause or concern that anyone's personally interested in, consider that it won't mean anything on a dead planet. Zero, nothing. We don't preserve the planet's life support systems, it's game over, and we're perilously close to that point. And what are we doing right now? Did you see the latest budget? How much more going into the military-industrial complex to build more weapons of mass destruction? Does that not seem like the epitome of insanity to you, Polly?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah, it does. I mean, we moved to Austin 12 years ago. There was rat snakes everywhere, butterflies, bees, everything. We are not seeing that anymore. So I'm with you on that. Well, I haven't seen a rat snake for a couple of years now. And they're important, believe it or not. Everybody who doesn't like snakes, they're important.
They're very, very important.
Yeah. And the butterflies, where are they? I don't know where the butterflies are. And the wildflowers that we normally have in Texas, nothing like how many we used to have. They used to be covered in wildflower, and now it's not.
Same in Northern California. And the same with sharks in the ocean are disappearing. I mean, the whole ocean food chain disappearing as well. On the snakes on the particular mountaintop I'm on, they're drawn to this mountaintop for some reason. I mean, I've relocated rattlesnakes my entire adult life because I think they're a miraculous creature and I'm not about to hurt them. Summer before last, I had to relocate 21. Last summer, 4. This summer, so far, none. So again, how people can think that life is going to go on. Do they think, and some people do think this, that, well, they don't need to worry about the environment because food comes from Walmart and McDonald's, right? No, not so much. And again, we need people to reprioritize why they're here. And as long as the odds look against us, again, the example I've used before, but if your child was in a burning house, you knew you had almost no chance of saving them, would you not try? Of course you would.
Absolutely. And to the people who love their dogs more than humans, dogs are being affected as well. Dogs breathe in the same air as us. Dogs are out in the same toxic rain as us. And dogs are dying earlier.
They are. And on that note, dogs are being given the same medical treatment that people are. And I just had to learn this the hard way firsthand with a young, healthy, vibrant Doberman that dropped dead for no reason except for an injection that a vet said they would not administer, but I now know they did. And again, I don't want to venture off into another subject, but I'm saying with this mentality of pressing on with extractive everything to keep this paradigm going until nothing is left, we're not going to be here long on this course. What does that mean? Because we had this discussion off air, Polly, as I know you remember, we just had this, but we have polar scientists stating the human race, based on the feedback mechanisms that have now been triggered, that the human race may not be here more than a few more years. That means before the end of this decade. And that is not even taking into account nuclear everything, which means 442 nuclear power plants that will go into meltdown when societies collapse. Takes 2 to 3 decades to cold shut down a nuke plant. Now there's legislation that's by this administration opening up, it appears, the avenue of burying this nuclear waste everywhere, anywhere they can. Just keep building new plants and burying the waste everywhere, just like they're fracking, destroying aquifers permanently everywhere. Is it not hard to see for people that we are behaving as a species that doesn't want to be around very long? So when we have polar scientists, and why would they say this? Why are the polar scientists, would they make such a statement? Because as the ice implodes in the polar zones, and it is, and for those people we see in alt media saying, oh, there's more ice than ever, I don't know what planet they're on, it damn sure isn't this one. The ice is completely disintegrating. They're chemically nucleating the sea surface. We can see this on satellite. We've recorded it. They're chemically nucleating the sea surface to create a chemically induced slush that they call ice pack to mask how badly the poles are melting. So when the ice disappears, and that reflects we're back to solar radiation management in a sense, Polly. The ice reflects 90% of the sun's incoming thermal energy. The ocean water absorbs 90%. So in their attempt to hide what's happening, they're actually making it worse, not better. As we lose the sea ice and the ocean absorbs that much more solar energy, exponentially more, now we have massive methane blowouts on a scale even bigger than we had. Methane enters the atmosphere, covering the planet like a layer of glass. Again, all that is happening right now. So the polar scientists, back to their statement, that's what puts them in a position to make that statement, that this equation is not linear. Once we break through these barriers of planetary life support systems, you can't grow food. At that point, we're done. And we're talking about heating on a scale that is incomprehensible, that has never happened in the planet's history of 4.5 billion years. So again, we have polar scientists stating that we have only a few years left on the current course. And if that doesn't sober people up, it should. And if they want to pretend that these processes aren't happening because, again, we all love to hate Al Gore, that's a mistake.
So everyone needs to keep up to date on geoengineeringwatch.org for sure.
We love hearing from you at CHD-TV. We always are going through your emails and, sending them to each other and discussing the pictures you're sending and, whatever comments you're making. So please continue doing so. You can reach out to us at goodmorning@chd.tv. Thank you so much for watching the Geoengineering Report, and we'll see you next time on CHD-TV.
My name is Vivian Stewart.
And what kind of a medical professional were you before you retired?
I was a college educator in medicine. I also am a clinical laboratory scientist, licensed in the state of New York, but I'm now living in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And tell us what you say that you could see this coming. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah. Well, first I want to at least tell you thank you, Polly, Robert Kennedy Jr., the wonderful work that I have seen, the Children's Health Defense. This is coming from my heart. That's why I had to come here to say hello. I had to come to the bus to say hello.
Thank you for doing that.
The Children's Health Defense TV, The Defender, and more. Yes, you may think you are alone, but you're not. There are many people out there getting the information out, and the valuable information and the work all of you have been doing. So that is why I had to come and say thank you for not forgetting about humanity. Now, how did I know certain things? As a clinical laboratory scientist, but also we have instincts. We can feel things. And what happened, we started hearing few things in 2019. But in 2020, I traveled 3 times out of the state of North Carolina, but you were hearing a few things about the so-called virus. When I returned after my 3rd trip, early part of March of 2020, then you started hearing more about the so-called lockdown and the concern of this coronavirus. But I could also tell that things were not what they say it was. I can tell that the news media, now this is for me, was doing a lot of fear mongering and had the people very concerned. Now, in my field as a clinical laboratory scientist, I worked over almost 45 years in the hospital. I worked in the field of microbiology, studying bacteria, studying viruses also, and also taught in that field. But I tell everyone, with all that I may have, and even licensed out of the state of New York, in my field, license number 3, you didn't need any of that to know. When you started hearing certain things in the news, There should have been a concern. And when there is a concern that you may feel, I would say to anyone, you need to stand down. Don't just jump and take things. You have to research yourself. So people were being admitted into the hospital, and you started hearing people dying, many other things. But I also knew that in my research, there were information that was given to the U.S. government in the medical area that be careful of ventilators. And I also was aware that a lot of these people were dying because of the ventilator. As I warned my family, I warned them and relatives, please stay away from hospitals and nursing homes. I warned them. This was in 2020, because the so-called, if there was an infection in the hospital, it can be a problem. So I warned a lot of family and friends, but I didn't say to them yet to be careful of the ventilators. And we believe in being healthy, working on your health, doing exercise, getting out. What happened, numerous people in the community started getting sick. We worked to assist them. And I always tell, when you hear certain things of this, we were hearing this so-called virus. I started studying it, and what I did, I also noticed if there was a so-called virus, it seems people was getting sick toward the cooler months and possibly respiratory. Now, this is what I started doing my own study. We also started studying about how to protect ourselves in the family. People also started looking into, we would send information out in the community, and valuable information. We also wanted people to know about the Children's Health Defense and the wonderful organizations out there working. Now this was before the so-called vaccine. I don't like to use that term vaccine because I knew it wasn't. I learned also that people, yes, they were dying because of that ventilator, and that there were things going on in the hospital, and that is why I warned my family and friends, stay away from hospitals and nursing homes. We did further research, and we worked on natural healing. So when someone would get sick in our community, we all, the community, we got together and we would send them certain natural remedies, you may call them. Turmeric, ginger, lemon drinks, sorrel, certain things for healing. We also knew we wanted to be very careful going into hospitals. And continuous, we also learned more things from other people that were out there with the alarm. They alarmed us. And people would send valuable information out. So I will say to all who are out there giving valuable information, there are numerous doctors doing great work. I knew about Del Bigtree, Highwire. He's not a doctor, but he's a medical investigator doing wonderful work. I knew about Dr. Mercola, many others, Risa Islam, many others are people who are out there trying to get the information out. But I also continuously saw the fear mongering of the news media, that they were scaring the people, and the tech and censoring. I also saw that. And so, but information is gotten out through the grassroots too. And I will say to all, people see you, they hear you, and your work is not done in vain. And we thank you for all the work you've been doing in reference to. But later, I knew they were preparing you so that with the fear or fear mongering, when the virus or when the so-called vaccine comes, you'll take anything. That was a very big concern for most. And yes, I know there was grave harm done with the vaccine. But now I'm seeing so many waking up. And I must say, I thank God for that, because they see and they have learned a lot. Yes, there's been a lot of harm done. I've had family members who have passed, numerous funerals. I have family members who have cancer, where they were in remission. I have family members who didn't have cancer, but now they're fighting for their lives now with cancer. I've had family members, strokes, many other things that have been very devastating to the family. And so that is why I wanted to come. Oh yes, the work is not over. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot. But I will say to all of you, be patient with the people. Be kind. Understand their brains are fragile. They cannot take all that has happened. So you have to be careful with the amount of information you may give. You give them little bits, and you let them do some research on their own. And I say, all of you, stay strong. See, God is in the midst. So the work that you're doing, you're fighting for humanity, because what has happened, it is evil. And so I want to thank you, Polly, and many of the wonderful people all over the world. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've studied what has happened in Germany, Australia, Venezuela, Canada, UK. We've researched that. And I'll say to all, when you're doing the research of looking, you have to stay in prayer with your research. And you have to ask God to guide you to what is true, because the lies, the narratives that are out there is so thick, you can cut it with a knife. And so I will say to all of you, don't give up. There are many people who love what you're doing, what you've done, and you are saving lives. And God bless all of you. Thank you.